Saturday, September 19, 1914, 8 a.m. Fred St. James is pulling up to Miss Montfort's boarding house on West 40th Street, right near Bryant Park. His room won't be ready for a few hours, so he decides to take a stroll around Times Square. He sees the attractions of the Great White Way for the first time. Hammerstein on 43rd, Shanley's restaurant frequented by the stars, the Astor Hotel, the Astor Theater, the Gaiety, the Globe, the Criterion, the Winter Gardens, the New York, and the Palace, the Mecca for vaudeville performers. There's Churchill's, there's Rectors, and there's the Automat, the first place that allowed a poor man to enjoy food served under glass. Even here at this quiet hour, Times Square is alive. After breakfast, Fred walked into the Putnam Building, 1501 Broadway between West 43rd and 44th Streets, which would later be replaced by the Paramount Theater. There he noticed one of the agents was in, Tom Jones. He told Mr. Jones the nature of his act. Jones chuckled and explained that an act had just fallen out of the bill at the Gaiety Theater on Livingston Street in Hanover Place, one of the busiest areas in Brooklyn. In New York for less than 2 hours, and Fred was already booked for 3 days the following week. Although his room at the Montfort was windowless and tiny, it was the characters Fred met at the boarding house that helped propel him forward. Most were performers of some kind, like-minded and eager. There was Twisto the Contortionist, Broomstick Elliott, the four Banta brothers, the Texas Tommy Dancers, the Carberry brothers, one of whom, John, became a good friend. They all practiced together, ate together, argued together. For Fred, a young man who knew almost no one in a city with several million people, it was perfect company. They also had one major thing in common. All were struggling to get ahead. Fred's first New York City gig didn't last long, and he soon found himself amongst the gainfully unemployed. When the Montfort soon foreclosed, John Carberry and Fred got a room together at Mrs. Lowry's boarding house on 48th Street. At least this room had a window. But week after week, Fred sat in various booking offices with no luck. He was running out of money. One Monday, he decided to go home. At 5 p.m. that afternoon, Fred went to send a telegram to a connection in Boston requesting the $40 he'd saved. As he turned onto Broadway from 40th Street towards the Western Union office, Fred ran into a friend named Lou Edelman. Lou was happy to see him. An act at the Empire Theater in Paterson, New Jersey, on the Police circuit had been canceled after the matinee performance. Lou had been sent to find the fill-in. He found his man. This chance encounter helped Fred meet his new agent, Mark Letty, who was soon booking him on Marcus Lowe's circuit for $75 per week. He played the Fulton Theater in Brooklyn and the Greeley in the Garment District. It led him to being booked across the country and finally to Australia. But Australia changed Fred's routine. He couldn't use gags Americans found funny. And in 1916, Australia was in the middle of World War I. A happy society it was not. There he played Cape Town and Brisbane, learning to wear his hair in a local style to avoid as much foreign animosity as possible. But overall, he felt unwelcome. Australia helped Fred's comedy, but it was a place he was excited to leave, working his way back to New York through Western vaudeville bookings set up by Letty. He was now Freddie James, and no longer a saint. The juggling was slowly giving way, first to a ventriloquist act, then later to banjo music with photographic props. It all served as window dressing for his developing monologue. His billing now read, Freddie James, acting done reasonable, 12 minutes in one. And in one was a performer who worked alone in front of the curtain so that more elaborate performances could be set up or broken down at the same time. Fred's talents were in vogue. He was moving up the billing. While just 23 years old, he played San Francisco, southwestern Canada, St. Louis, and Chicago. When Fred finally returned to New York, Mark Letty decided it was time to change his name. Freddie James was a nice mid-tier act. He had steadily earned at least $75 per week for 2 years across the world. But for him to take the next step, refinement was needed. By changing his name along with evolving his act, he'd be seen as a new talent. Here, friend Benny Drone explains how Fred got a new name.
He was up in a booking office. A fellow by the name of Edgar Allen used to book the Fox circuit around New York. And he was looking for work, and the guy says, "What do you do?" He says, "I juggle." He says, "Go right down to the 14th Street Theater, the Fox Theater down there, and get your stuff down there, and you'll be able to go on for the rest of the day, and it's a split week. You'll get the 3 days' pay." So after he left, the man at the theater called up and said, "What's this fellow's name he's sending down? Because we'd like to put his name out with the rest of the vaudeville bill in front of the theater." And this fella, Edgar Allen, said his name is Edgar Allen. And the fellow on the other side thought he said Fred Allen, so out went Fred Allen, and from then on he was known as Fred Allen.
One day he was booked by the Fox Circuit at the City Theater on 14th Street near 3rd Avenue. When Fred arrived at the theater for rehearsal, he found that the booker had given him a new name. And that name was Fred Allen.